Hey guys, this is Thomas Frank. You're listening to Walking the Floor.
Oh yeah.
Walking the floor over you. Actually, I don't remember how it goes.
Oh, I'm so including that in this interview.
I don't remember how it goes.
I'm walking the floor over you.
Walking the floor.
I'm walking the floor. Walking the floor over you.
Hola, senors and senoritas, and welcome to episode 61 of Walking the Floor. With me, as always, Chris Shiflett, your host. Thank you for tuning in. It's been a busy week here. This is actually episode 3 for just this week, man. That's like a new record for Walking the Floor. But I had to get this last one in ahead of next week's big election because I sat down the other day with my friend and one of my favorite writers, Mr. Thomas Frank, who you may know from great books like What's the Matter with Kansas or The Wrecking Crew or Pity the Billionaire. But in this interview, we talked for the most part about his latest book, Listen Liberal, which you should go out and get right now if you haven't read it yet. And of course, the 2016 election cycle, and we even gotten into some fantasy stuff like, what would happen under a Donald Trump presidency, or what can we expect from Hillary as president. We talked about a whole lot of stuff, but I'm going to let him pick it up right here, talking about the Podesta email leak. This is Thomas Frank on Walking the Floor.
Well, he was just really bad at computer security. I mean, we all are bad at it, right? Nobody pays any attention to it. But he not only fell for one of these like scams where they send you an email and it's like, dude, your password has somebody's got into your account. You got to change your password now. So tell us your original password and then change it. And he fell for that. But then he also was like in his emails, he's like sending emails to people saying, my password is blah, 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 blah. Would you get on my, my account and do something or other? And his password was runner23456 because he likes to jog, right? Runner. So
wow.
It's like yeah.
Put him in charge of everything.
yeah. The Clintons, man.
Wow.
They can't do anything right.
Well,
they can raise money. They can raise money.
It is amazing when I just interviewed a very famous boxing trainer, this guy Freddie Roach. I don't know if you follow boxing at all, and one of the questions I asked him was, because they make it very hard to be a boxing fan nowadays. The powers that be in boxing.
God, I haven't watched
like
boxing
if you
in
think politics is corrupt and silly, you should try being a boxing fan. So, and I said to him at one point, I said, do the people that run boxing know fucking anything about boxing? And it seems like I could ask the same question of the people who run the fucking world.
Yeah. They just
feel free. You can get as close to the mic as you like.
Okay. Do you want me to do that, or do you want?
Yeah,
okay.
the closer the better. But if you want to, you can pull it into you if you want.
No, I'll sit up straight. That way I won't relax and I'll be.
There you go, ready for battle.
Yeah, exactly. I've been working out, by the way.
I can see that. Yeah, you seem very sure you are a strong progressive.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, first, I guess is
it on? By the way,
I'm recording. On? Yeah, no, I caught all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Well, I hope you don't broadcast.
I hope
it heard me curse.
Oh boy. But okay, now that's weird. My computer's just doing weird stuff.
I think that's my phone.
That's your phone.
It's like downloading.
Okay.
It's like downloading everything onto your computer,
no.
it's pinging as all my.
Let's hope not. Here, let me just do that.
There you go.
Regardless.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Hopefully, I'm not uploading all of your information, and then my next podcast is gonna be like, "Oh my god, you want to know what Thomas Frank's passwords were?"
Check out this guy's emails. They're as bad as Hillary's.
Yeah. Welcome to this very special, first time ever, election 2016 special edition of Walking the Floor.
No, wait, you can't say, because it's not going to be broadcast till after the election.
No, I'm going to put it up this week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No, this is in advance, and I know that I'm going to get criticized quite a bit for, potentially disrupting Hillary's inevitable win, for having a couple of dissenting viewpoints.
You could screw it up.
That's right.
It's so delicate.
It's really,
if you just think the wrong thing as you're driving in your car, you could be the butterfly effect, right?
Every time I post on Twitter one of your articles, I get responses like, "Not this time, Chris. Don't do it." Like, don't you wish that you had the power to sway elections? I wouldn't be sitting here with you now.
That would be so awesome, But no,
Yeah.
you only have the power to sway it in a way that other people can criticize you for.
There you go.
But no, I had a guy just today. I put an article of mine up on Facebook, and a guy said to me, it's going to be really hilarious when you get Trump elected and he puts you in prison.
Yeah, cut to you 6 months from now. Like, oh damn,
Damn it! Yeah, here I am.
right.
I'm in Leavenworth, and I'm like, geez.
Okay, so
I shouldn't have written that article.
Let's back up. So for people listening that aren't familiar with your work, you are a writer. You've written many books. Some of them critical of the right.
Yeah.
The last couple a little more critical of the Dems.
Yeah.
What we
Yeah.
would call
Well, just
the
his last
center
one.
left or however you want to describe it.
No, but
So-
that's a
well, I
two-party
think
system. You got to criticize both of them, right?
Absolutely. I think Pity the Billionaire started to go there.
It started to, yeah.
But this last one, Listen Liberal, that if
Yeah.
people listening haven't read, they really need to read.
Yeah.
It's a history of sort of how the Democratic Party got to where we are now.
Yeah. So this sort of awful place that they're in right now.
Yeah. So to explain the premise of your book to the people listening.
Yeah. So it starts with the question of where we are right now. Like why, we just came through this terrible recession. Barack Obama elected with this incredible wave of hope and enthusiasm 8 years ago. And I was among the hopeful, I should
As
add.
was I.
Yeah. And we've got very little to show for it. We have a sort of a half-assed national healthcare system that's all of these problems are coming to light now. But on the really important question before us at the time, what to do about the banks, he just chose to do nothing, to just continue it as, bail these guys out, stand them back up and let them go back about their business. And inequality is soaring. All the things that he came into office to deal with are, the recession is over for some people. You know about this. I mean, the economy is booming on paper right now.
Right.
It looks great. The stock market is doing great. But for people who aren't at the very top, nothing has changed. They think it's still a recession, which is incredible. But so how did this happen? And the story is not just Barack Obama. It goes way back. And it goes back to the way some people would account for it going back a long, long, long way. But I start in the 70s when the Democrats decided that they didn't want to be the party of organized labor anymore. And they wanted to reach out to this different group. They wanted to be the party of affluent white-collar liberals, okay? So professional class liberals. And they have done that. That's what they have done. And that's who they are today. And I shed no tears for big labor circa 1971. These guys were not particularly good people, and you can understand why.
And had become like kind of part of the establishment.
They really had, and they
that
supported a lot of them supported the Vietnam War.
And the truly radical elements of the labor movement were weeded out long before
Well,
the era that you're talking about.
but they're there now. I mean, the thing is that the labor movement is pretty good right now,
right?
But they're much smaller now. I mean, they don't have anything like the power they used to have. But you can understand, at the time when the Democrats made this choice, you can understand why they did it, But when you throw working people's organizations under the bus, you are also throwing working people under the bus. It may not occur to you that that's what you're doing at the time, but that's what they did. And instead, they embraced and this is important, the winners in the new economy. So the emerging post-industrial economy, the knowledge economy, whatever you want to call it. They decided they were going to be on the side of the winners in this new order rather than working people. I don't want to say that working people were the losers in the old order, because they weren't the losers once they had organized and they had a political party. And they were the middle class. But identifying with the winners is a very different proposition, and that's who they are. That's where they are today. And so you wonder why Barack Obama doesn't get tough with the banks. You wonder why Bill Clinton deregulated the banks. You wonder why they love Silicon Valley so much. These are the industries that they identify with. And I mean, identify with in a profound way, not just these guys give me money, which they do, of course. But it goes deeper than that. It is a philosophical identification or a class identification. They see themselves in Wall Street and in Silicon Valley and big pharma, these industries that they love.
You know, after writing What's the Matter with Kansas and Wrecking Crew, those books that were critical of the right, I have to assume that your sort of main readership base are exactly the people that you're talking about. And I mean, which is why I wanted you to explain the premise of your book.
Yeah, I've got a real problem with this.
How has the new book gone over with the people that you're basically being critical of?
This is a problem. Okay, so...
Right.
I
just want to preface your answer by saying that, you know, I live around exactly who you're talking about. I'm immersed in these people.
So do I. That's why I wrote it.
These are my friends and family, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know many progressives or Democrats or, you know, liberals that take a critical look at the Democratic Party in a meaningful way.
Yeah, they don't do it. Exactly. I mean, they might do it in a superficial way.
Has this been a shock to their system?
No, they just don't read it or they don't talk about it. So look, when I started out in this business back in the 90s, you know, when I started Baffler magazine and I was writing these essays, you know, and people would say, who's your intended audience? And I would never really think about that. And the idea was, for me, to describe something accurately and honestly and really nail it. And, you know, do it in an entertaining way. And who I was writing to was always secondary to me. I never had an audience that I was trying to please. And maybe that's a oversight for me. Maybe that was stupid on my part. But I feel like when I figured out the thesis of Listen Liberal, which I just outlined to you, and started plugging this hypothesis into what we see around us and what's going on in the world, damn it, I thought I was onto something. You know, this hypothesis or this way of looking at the Democratic Party, this works. It explains a lot of things. It's, you know, and I'm very proud of the book, but you are exactly right that it hasn't got the same kind of attention or affection that the other ones have got, and it's most especially from the media in America. So you've got this huge problem in America. Who buys books?
Right.
The people I'm describing. You know, you can. I talk to labor unions all the time. I talk to all these different groups, and I talk to these labor unions all the time, and they're really nice guys, and they really agree with what I'm saying, and the leadership is great, and the rank and file people are great, but they don't buy books. They agree with me, and they're great people, but they don't buy books. But the people who do buy books are your NPR listeners, and it's exactly the people I just described, and by and large, no, they don't like what I'm selling this time. They don't. So the book ends with this image of they have to look in the mirror.
Right.
And in fact, the image on the cover is a finger pointing at you, the reader. You know.
Right.
And nobody wants to
You're
do
in
that.
trouble.
yeah. It's like you right there. Hey, liberal, listen up.
Right.
You know, the problem is you. You remember the Sex Pistols song?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody wants to do that.
Well, it's interesting to me, and you mentioned this the other night at that Truth Dig event that you spoke at, that, this isn't left-wing crackpot, tinfoil hat, conspiracy theory stuff. This was all done out in the open. They wrote about it. They spoke about it. They claim some of these accomplishments as their great accomplishments of the party.
Yeah.
So I wonder, with that in mind, I mean, what did... say big labor at the time when this was happening, they must have seen the shift taking place. Where they whoa, hey guys.
Yeah, they got really pissed off, and they got really pissed off. And there's for example, they helped to they didn't. So the first Democrat to run this way was McGovern in '72, and you know what happened to him? It was this incredible disaster. And the group that he was reaching out to, it was this group that I'm describing, and they called them at the time suburban liberals. And the only state he won was Massachusetts, where these people were at the time in huge abundance.
Did he not get organized labor support at the time?
No, he didn't.
He did not.
They really let him go. They let him. They did not rally around him. Now, they always do to some degree. They always support him to some degree. But it was the first time that big labor really did not have a lot of say in the campaign, and they were pissed off.
How fascinating that is known as like the great failure of presidential campaigns.
They came back with Carter, and to this day, But
isn't that fascinating? That the lesson that they took from that was to
keep
go
going
further down that road.
Yes, yeah. But that's why this is so interesting. It's ideological. So much of so the way that your average cynic understands the Democrats is they got paid. This is where the money is. They're going for the money. But so much of it is because they believe, because they really believe in what they're doing. Like, you look at Barack Obama's presidency. This man did what he did because he wanted to do it. And there are many
But that's not the way that
have...
it is interpreted
right.
by the sort of left,
yeah.
by the left wing
yeah.
base. Like, I know so many people that will tell you, oh, he would have done X, Y, and Z,
yeah.
but it's those big bad Republicans.
Yeah, they wouldn't let him. They wouldn't let him do the good stuff.
But when you look at his first 100 days or his first year, what was it, about a year before they lost?
2 years. He had 2 years before he lost.
So about a year before he lost to the Scott Brown seat, right?
Wasn't that about a year? But that shouldn't have stopped him. He still had a majority in the Senate, and if his heart had been in the right place. So they have this thing we're getting into the weeds here, but it's called the filibuster.
Into the weeds. Yes.
And the filibuster is between you and me is bullshit, and they should have done away with that. And Obama could have said to his Dems in the Senate, "We're doing away with the filibuster." If somebody wants to filibuster something, make them actually physically do it.
Right.
Speak for a month or whatever it is.
Right.
You can't just let them say. Anyhow, so it is a technical sort of courtesy thing that they invented a number of years ago, and people are forever saying we should do away with this. He should have done away with it. A lot was on the line in those days.
I mean, I think the Dems. My memory of it was that the Democratic Party seemed in total chaotic disarray that first year or two of his presidency, in that they had so much power, and there was this massive move in America that they wanted. Remember that he famously said something like, "I'm what stands between you and the pitchforks," or whatever.
Yes,
like that was true.
That was a great moment. Yeah,
but they didn't know what to do with it. It was is what it seemed like from my perception of it.
Yes, that's part of it, and it's. So, now that we're 8 years past the Obama movement, and we have to try to look back at him and talk about his legacy, and everybody's going to be talking about his legacy in the next couple of months. And everybody's inclination, or liberals' inclination, is to get him off the hook because they want to believe that their hero was a hero. When you invest so much in a man emotionally, which we all did. And to this day, I saw him speak at the Democratic Convention just a couple months ago, and I was ready to sign up for him again. He has Mencken, my favorite writer, was a real curmudgeon and a real cynic. And he said the meanest thing about William Jennings Bryan. This is a man that he hated. But Bryan was a great orator, like Obama. And he said that Bryan had this trick in his voice that would... I forget how he put it, but it basically would hypnotize, a certain kind of person.
I believe they call that charisma.
Yeah, I'm that person. And
right.
Obama's voice does that to me. He's got that trick in his voice that does it. And I am a total sucker for that. But to get back to all the things that he could have done differently, and there are many of them, but a lot of it required leadership. And we all knew he'd only been in the Senate for 2 years when he became president. But I thought at the time, sure, he doesn't have a lot of experience, but he's got Rahm Emanuel, like the meanest, toughest, guy in Washington is at his side. He can choose some good advisors. I knew he was friends with, I knew this guy, Bill Black in Kansas City, a very famous bank regulator, had some association with Obama's campaign. Jamie Galbraith, a famous economist, had some association with him.
But you could see before he even took office by his cabinet appointments that was not going to be the case.
Okay, so
proven now by that pedestrian email.
Yes, now it's proven. Okay, but I was a little slow on the uptake. I had a lot of hope, shall we say. No, it made me mad. I mean, look, one of the reasons I loved Obama is because, and I rallied to him and I was part of the hopeful, is because I looked at him and I said, he is going to root out the Clinton influence in the Democratic Party. He's going to bring in all new people, and it's going to be great. And instead he turns around, and it is Rahm Emanuel and Larry Summers and Tim Geithner and
Bob Rubin and all these people.
Bob Rubin, the whole Bob Rubin, all of his entourage comes right back into government, and Hillary herself. They're all right back, and that was massively disappointing to me. Well, I mean, the hell with it. But anyhow, the important thing is to realize that he could have done it differently if he wanted.
But that assumes that he would have wanted to
exactly,
do it. Right.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the big
question.
So
my argument, one of the arguments in Listen Liberal, is that Obama did what he wanted to do.
Right.
And if we are going to be adults about this and understand the man had free will, You have to understand that people fall back on this kind of fatalism where he had no choice in this, he had no choice in that. He had a lot of choice, especially at the beginning. Now, the Republicans came in 2 years later and took that away, but there's still things he could have done and could do to this day.
Sure.
Prosecute Wall Street, top Wall Street guys. Use antitrust on big pharma or on Silicon Valley or the agricultural monopolies. He could withdraw from NAFTA tomorrow. Did you know that?
No.
I only learned that recently. It's not up to Congress. It's up to the president, and the president can walk out of that treaty. He has a 6-month waiting period or something like that. But
so you're telling me that if Trump gets elected, he could actually fulfill that campaign?
He could walk
promise?
out of it immediately. Yeah, yeah.
Really?
But you wouldn't do that. I mean, what you'd do is you'd
not.
first make a demand. You'd say we have to go back to the bargaining table, and we want this and we want that.
Right.
And if we don't get it, then we're walking. He could have done that the whole time he was president, and he chose not to do it.
Right.
All of these things were possible for him. I'm sorry. This is depressing stuff. The right wingers. Remember when I wrote The Wrecking Crew, which came out in 2008, by the way, the year of the great Obama victory. The right wingers had a saying: "Personnel is policy." That's my iPhone again. It's making that noise. They had this saying: "Personnel is policy." And you look at who Reagan appoints or George Bush appoints, and that tells you what they're going to do, and that tells you how things are going to unfold. And you look at Obama, who Obama appoints. He has a totally free hand to appoint whoever he wants, and he chooses Larry Summers.
Right.
He chooses Tim Geithner.
Sure.
And we now know, as you pointed out, I mean, one of the most disheartening things in all of those emails that are coming out through WikiLeaks is the one from the Citibank guy, Froman,
right?
Yeah, and he's naming Obama's cabinet a month before Obama even wins the election. So we're all out there going to these rallies, 200,000 people in Kansas City or whatever, in St. Louis. And Michael Froman at Citibank is telling, Podesta who's going to be in the cabinet. And it's his friends. It's not his friends, it's these...
I mean, isn't that exactly what people are talking about when they say, we live in an oligarchy? I mean, isn't that it right there? I mean, it doesn't get much more blatant than that. Yeah, I don't. Yes, that is exactly what it is. But it's not. There's two different. Look, this is just splitting hairs. I mean, of course, that's what it is. But there's. I mean, and maybe this will make you feel better, and maybe it won't. But there's two different oligarchies. Okay, there's the sort of Koch brothers one that's money, and business and corporate. And oil, and then there's this other one that is professionals, and this is it is a status hierarchy. So it's these people at the very top. So these guys at Citibank, these guys at Goldman, and these guys in the Treasury Department, they all went to school together. They know each other. They know that each other they're all smart. They always use this word to describe each other: smart. They all went to Ivy League schools. They vacationed together on Martha's Vineyard. This is, by the way, another thing you realize from the Podesta emails. These people are all friends with each other. They go, we talk about the revolving door in D.C. Right.
You go from the Treasury Department to Goldman Sachs and back and forth. But it's much bigger than that. It's
the people in that crowd, when you're talking about tech and Wall Street, the world of finance or whatever, are they ideologically committed to, are they ideologically Democrats? Because it seems to me they're sort of like apolitical. You know what they are?
They're Davos Democrats. They have a worldview, and they're like, you remember in the 90s, I don't know if I wrote a book back then that's called One Market Under God,
right, sure,
about the philosophy of these people. And to a large extent, that's now the philosophy of the Democratic Party. But they see this as, they think they're doing good in the world. So in Listen Liberal, the second to last chapter is about Hillary Clinton and a Clinton Foundation gathering. And I'm trying to understand what Hillary Clinton believes in. Because if you look at her record, she doesn't believe in anything. She's changed her mind about everything in the course of her life. Everything. Like she was, to go back to when she was a child, she became famous for being against the Vietnam War. And now she's like, votes for the Iraq War, which is like,
the biggest hawk in the Democratic Party.
She wants to shoot down planes over Syria now, or whatever it is, And, she's bombing Libya. So she's totally inconsistent on everything, right? She says she loves women and children, and then she gets her husband to sign welfare reform, which is like the cruelest thing anyone's ever done to poor women and children in America. You know, she loves working people, and then the Democratic Party strikes a deal with Uber at their convention, so the delegates have to ride Uber back. Yeah, seriously,
really?
It's just all over the place. There is no consistency in anything she says. But there is this one sort of thing that she's very consistent about. She believes that finance and people of these sort of Wall Street people are doing good things for the world by getting everyone a bank account in the world and spreading Western banking technology,
microcredit.
Yeah,
whatnot.
Exactly. Yes, that we are going to raise up the poor of the world, and this is an idea that she has been consistent about her entire life. That what needs to happen is the poorest people in the world need to get together with the very, very richest. The people, like her and like her friends on Wall Street and her friends at Microsoft or whatever, and they're going to solve, the very, very rich are going to solve the problems of the very, very poor and forget about the people in between, right? And that's really her philosophy, and she's very consistent about this. She's, very consistent about believing that Wall Street banks are doing good in the world. It seems crazy, but it's true.
But it's not just her. So isn't it?
Well,
so
sure.
many of those people that you're talking about, like Eric Schmidt and Zuckerberg and Bezos and all these guys at these big companies that all have foundations that are, supposedly raising people up out of
It's a
poverty.
liberalism of the rich.
Right.
It's a liberalism that is where they're very liberal on cultural and social issues, and that sits side by side with their economic interests without any contradiction in their minds.
Right.
And that's who the Democratic Party is at the top. Now, another thing to look at, okay, you had a challenger this time around. You had Bernie Sanders, who was, he calls himself a democratic socialist, but if you ask me, he's an old New Dealer. This is like very familiar kind of politics from a long time ago. It's sort of coming back, right? It's like a museum stuff, right? And they hated this guy, hated him, right? We thought that he was this kindly grandfather sort of figure, and you look at, so I wrote this story about the Washington Post's understanding of Bernie Sanders, and they hated this guy's guts, just like.
Well, it wasn't just the Post. I mean, he not only ran against
everybody,
against Hillary, he ran against the DNC. He ran against basically the entirety of
the entire machinery.
Yeah,
but what gets me is how many people in the kind of community that we're describing also hated him.
Right,
and
they sent out even people like Gloria Steinem and Tom Hayden to go be attack dogs.
Yes,
I mean, that was really
that one I don't get.
Horrible. Yeah.
Tom, I mean, those are people that I used to admire.
Yeah.
So what can I say?
And then on top of that, did a lot of cheating. On top of,
No, that's all of that is true. But wait, we'll come to that in a second, because we're at a really interesting point here where we're going to have an election in a week, you know? And something really bad could happen. But to get back to Bernie, I was trying to understand that the hatred, but it comes back to the same thing. These people are all in the same class. So all of these guys writing the op-eds at the Washington Post, the people at the top of the media structure, are in this same group. They're at Martha. They're out there on Martha's Vineyard, just like the rest of them. They look at Hillary, and she is. By the way, Hillary is one of the most hated people ever to run for president. It's her great good fortune that she's running against. She's the second most hated. Trump is the most hated, and that's like she's going to win because of that.
Sure.
She's got like 2 points less hated than he is.
Right,
just
like
enough. That. Yeah, exactly. But there's this one group that does not hate her, that thinks she is the greatest thing in the world and that she is going to be an awesome president. And it's like the op-ed pages of the New York Times and the Washington Post, and they adore her. And that's really weird. I mean, I did this story about the Washington Post, and it's like, their anti-Sanders op-eds and editorials outnumbered the pro ones by 5-1. Now, this is a liberal newspaper, the Washington Post. How did that happen? How is it? And they didn't hire anybody specifically for this election. These are all people that have been there for years and years and years. How come everybody that they chose years and years and years ago hated this guy so uniformly? It is fascinating, and it's not a conspiracy, right? Because these people were hired years ago.
Right.
It's just they all agree on it's all the same way of looking at the world, and it's a class-based way of looking at the world. So that's what I'm trying to get at here. I talk too much, by the way.
No, that's good for interviews.
I know.
As somebody,
as
the interviewer, that's good.
I know. I need to go to like a quiet room for like about a month when all this is.
I shouldn't have given you that Coca-Cola at lunch. That's what I think.
It was the kind with the real sugar, you know.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
What a pointy-headed liberal thing to do. Oh, I want the one with the real sugar. I'm really getting streaked.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about that. You a minute ago referenced Hillary influencing Bill on welfare reform.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's the thing. So this was a big debate with, if you go back and read the memoirs, right. about how Clinton decided to sign welfare reform, and his cabinet was split. Some of them were like, you can't, like Robert Reich was like, you can't do this. And other people were saying, you got to do it. You promised to do it. You got to do it. And apparently Hillary talked to him in private and talked him into it. And she has said in her memoirs that she lobbied for it, tried to get it passed through Congress, thought it was a good idea. And in fact, the Clintons were proud of it up until very recently. Now they don't even mention it anymore.
Right.
They don't even talk about it, but they were proud of it.
But is it fair when looking at her, like thinking of her as a candidate for this upcoming election, for people to judge her based on her husband's on the sort of legislative, the bad things that he did?
I mean, it's a good question, and I tried to address that in Listen Liberal, because a big part of Listen Liberal is about Bill Clinton.
Right.
He's kind of the big bad guy in the book.
I guess what I'm getting to is, how much was she actively involved in working that legislation to help get it passed? Like all the bad stuff we talk about, the deregulating Wall Street and
that one I don't know
crime bill,
about,
all that stuff.
So I decided you could only hold her responsible if she owns it. If she has said at some point that she favored it.
If you can go onto YouTube and find her in 1996 out promoting it. Is it fair to hold her accountable?
If you look in her memoirs, if you read her, she's written 3 books of memoirs.
Okay.
And if you go in the one that she wrote in the aughts, she says she takes ownership of welfare reform. And she took ownership of the crime bill, which is also a huge honking disaster.
Sure.
And we know her position on Wall Street. So you can hold her. And also, she was at the time, she was Bill Clinton's closest advisor. They said that.
Right.
And she has also opened herself up for this on the campaign trail, because she's constantly saying, if you put me back in, you'll get another Clinton economy, and I'll put Bill in charge of the economy, and everything will improve for you.
Oh, no.
And, and look, okay, so I have to tell you, I have to confess here, I voted for her the other day. I went down to the early voting in Maryland, and I voted for Hillary. And I've gone through all the different stages now, and I'm at acceptance. And I'm seriously, and I'm going around saying to myself, hey, maybe it'll work out.
I thought when
it'll work out.
I thought when you said that the other night at that Truth Thing event, I thought you were going to get pulled from the stage and beaten. I thought Chris Hedges was going to come out from behind the curtain and just clock you.
You know what's funny is like I'm usually getting criticized from the other end for being like too critical of Hillary. But it's funny. Then I talk to some of these groups, and when I say I voted for Hillary, people get mad at me.
Right. I mean, well, what can we expect? Let's just get into fantasy.
By the way, just to make this even weirder, I spoke in France this summer.
Yeah.
And my audience there, these are hard left people. People on their left is very different from ours. They were all for Trump.
What?
Yeah, and I was
explain that.
I was totally defending Hillary,
right?
And because they're, Trump has promised to defund NATO and stop expanding NATO, and they're like, awesome, do it.
Right.
Yeah, they're like, NATO is an imperialist force that just, it never fired a shot against the Soviets. It's all about like attacking Libya and having a military adventure in Yemen or wherever it is they're bombing. And so they're really against NATO, which you would never think of over here.
Has anybody mentioned NATO this entire election cycle?
Trump talks about it, but he talks about it in the different way. He's saying like the allies don't pay their fair share, right? He says this all the time. And these people in France had interpreted this to mean he was going to let the whole thing fall apart. So I'm quite serious.
Well, let's get into fantasy mode here. What can we expect in your mind from a Hillary Clinton presidency. Let's just say she wins next week.
Yeah.
And how do you think it's going to be? You mentioned the other night that you did not expect her to put a bunch of Wall Street veterans into her cabinet, which I think you might be overly optimistic about.
Really?
She can't. Weren't they tainted in 2008 when
yes,
Obama did the same
they
thing?
were, because you remember Bush had Hank Paulson in there, who came from Goldman Sachs. And
Sure.
you remember how angry everyone was at that, and then Obama went and did the same damn thing.
So why wouldn't she do the same thing? I mean, what do you?
Come on.
I don't want to put my opinion in. What do you think's
We're
gonna
so
happen?
far down the road now. Elizabeth Warren, and that sort of thing. It seems impossible and Bernie Sanders. It seems impossible for her to do that. However,
are they going to listen to those voices?
Well, to some degree, they don't have a choice, because that is the grassroots of the party now. That's that's the leadership of the party. Actually, I don't know why I'm being optimistic. I shift back and forth. But you will see Silicon Valley people for sure,
right?
Absolutely, and for sure, they will be in there in force. But they're already in the Obama administration. You've already got the revolving door going with those guys. I don't know. I fully expect to see people from Facebook and Google, running things.
I mean, if the thing that when I sort of argue this stuff with my progressive friends, they always the Trump card. Yeah, Trump card. Is always
Trump.
Well, no, is always the Supreme Court. No, we'll sort of go back and forth.
No, that's right. That's right.
But
that is a legitimate issue.
Totally, 100% legitimate. But let me ask you this: if Obama just tried to put a longtime Republican onto the Supreme Court, and we know from those leaked emails that Clinton's thinking about putting a Republican corporate lawyer onto the Supreme Court.
I know that I did not know.
Oh, that was what's his name from Texas?
Oh,
I should have written that down.
Oh well.
So now I'm getting into tinfoil hat territory.
There's too many of these.
you can't.
There's too many of those emails. There's like 30 or 40,000.
Assuming that's what we get, then why? I mean, how does that help? If the Supreme Court is the ultimate, you have to do this because of that.
I assume the person is pro-choice, right? So that's on that.
But pro-choice. I mean, come on.
But on that issue, yeah, I know. But on that issue, Hillary's going to be really. There's the choice is black and white on that issue,
of course,
and as it always is, right? The culture wars. Hey, these guys are good on those,
right?
But it's. The middle class is falling apart.
Right.
Do something about it. That's what gets me. It's like, look at this issue. Do something about it.
But along those same lines, instead of, getting into fantasy mode about the Hillary Clinton presidency, let's just say Trump won. What would you expect him to do if he became president? I mean, what do you really think? Because he says all this crazy stuff on the campaign trail, but what could he actually accomplish? I mean, you just said a minute ago he could get rid of
on the
NAFTA,
trade deals. He could do that, and obviously he would kill the TPP. And I suspect Hillary, by the way, I think she'll get it passed.
Of course,
and she'll completely reverse herself on that and get it passed. She'll demand some superficial change in order to say, I said I didn't like it, and now I got what I wanted, and which by the way, the Clintons did with NAFTA back in the 90s. They said we need some labor protection, and they got something that was completely toothless and irrelevant. But they had
something they could point to as, hey, we fought for that thing.
Yeah, that's exactly. And she'll do that, and then that'll get done. And he won't do that. But the thing is, what scares me about Trump is his complete incompetence.
Yes,
especially on foreign affairs.
Does that make you not acceptable as a presidential candidate?
Yeah, it does.
Complete incompetence.
I
was trying to make a joke.
You wait. No, not necessarily. Okay, we said earlier Obama was not an experienced man and was not, and he didn't have a lot of. He came into the office with only 2 years in the Senate behind him. He'd been in the Illinois State Senate. But also
of course
knew
you
that
can't
Obama
compare
had,
those two guys.
No, but Obama was an intelligent man who could choose good advisors.
Sure.
Look who Trump's advisors are. These are
I'm not
some of the worst people there are.
I'm not trying to defend Trump at all. I
I
not
know.
support Trump. I don't like Trump.
What he might
but
do.
I'm saying, what could he actually accomplish? Could he come into, if let's say he was president, could he just go, I'm just going to build a wall between us and Mexico? That's not really the way our government works, right?
Yeah.
And
wait. The Mexican government has to appropriate money for that. And in the absence of that, I don't see how it's going to happen.
But you're right. And the entirety of the rest of the Republican Party seems to dislike him. So what would he? Why am I supposed to be more scared of him? coming in and somehow
the
wrecking
Republicans,
everything.
They do. Okay, so they do have, Paul Ryan running Congress, basically. And he does have a lot of ideas that would be really destructive. And my guess is he could get Trump to sign off on a lot of them. Although right now those two guys hate each other.
Right, sure.
But they won't forever.
Yeah.
And so I suspect that he would sign off on a lot of really, really, really bad shit. Now, I don't think he would privatize Social Security. That's their dream. The Republicans' dream, of course, is to get that. And Trump has said he won't do that.
Is that not also the Democrats' dream? I mean, you talk about that in your book, that Bill
yes,
tried it,
Bill
Obama tried it.
Bill Clinton did try it, and nobody knows this.
Surely Hillary Clinton's going to try it, too.
Yeah.
They won't call it privatizing.
By the way, that's
Social
in the
Security.
Podesta emails. There is some kind of plan, not for privatizing that, but for setting up a national savings plan to go right next to Social Security that also comes out of your paycheck and that is managed by Wall Street.
Well, talk about this
It is
with Bill Clinton trying to privatize.
Yeah, nobody knows about this. So in '97,
so
he had a series of secret meetings with Newt Gingrich, who is Speaker of the House, and they to privatize Social Security. They were going to come up with a plan, and they did. They came up with an agreement how they were going to do it. They were going to let you have private accounts managed by investment banks or whatever, and they agreed on a timetable. And they were going to pass it. They were going to have a series of bogus commissions. The Clintons loved bogus commissions where all the results are preordained. They did this a number of times, and they'll do it again. We're coming into a great era for this stuff. But they're going to set up bogus commissions, study the issue, and then pass it during the lame duck session somewhere down the road. And Clinton introduced it in his '98 State of the Union address. They had a code phrase for it. He said, "Save Social Security first." And then the Monica Lewinsky scandal erupted at that very same time, and that killed it. Because then all of a sudden it was we got to impeach this guy, and who is this guy? And the world erupted in this scandal, and that was the end of it. And so basically, Monica Lewinsky saved Social Security, and so this was all secret at the time. Nobody knew it. Nobody knew about it.
Right.
But it's all
How did this come out?
Oh, there was some historian. I don't know how he found out about it, but
whose emails did you steal
No.
to get this information?
He interviewed Newt, and he interviewed a bunch of the participants. So the main go-between between these two guys, Clinton and Gingrich, was Erskine Bowles, by the way, who Obama brought back for exactly the same purpose.
Right.
Yeah. And
that was Obama's attempt. What was it called?
The grand bargain.
Right. Yeah.
Grand bargain. And I'm sure we'll see. By the way, Hillary will get the grand bargain. Where Social Security is cut in various ways in exchange for some concession on the deficit. And oh my God, I just want to end the conversation now because that's so awful. And so I'm bouncing back and forth between saying, maybe the economy will, we'll get full employment and it'll be this robust, booming economy. There's no reason for me to be optimistic about that, but maybe it'll happen. Or maybe it'll just be complete disaster.
It's just going to be business as usual. Yeah. You talked the other night about how, or maybe it was in your article. I can't remember. I've
so many words.
I've seen you so much in the last several days. Yeah. No, but you talked about how there's the potential that there could be this next version of Trump that's not a moron.
Yeah.
That plays the game successfully. That's this sort of newfangled fascist or whatever next time around.
On the road to it. I mean, it's Trump is scary, but I think one of the reasons Trump is so scary is because he's a bigot. The thing about Muslims, the thing about Mexicans, insulting every ethnic group. It's nutty.
Yeah.
But imagine a real politician with Trump's positions.
Right.
A real politician who knows that you don't do that. And knows not to be obsessed with himself. I mean, Hillary has got Trump's number psychologically. You saw it in the debate. Every time she got into a hot spot, she would throw an insult at him. Call him Putin's puppet or something. And then immediately the conversation is sidetracked because Trump is like, "Oh, what are you calling me that?" Blah, 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 blah. And it all comes back to him. And he's such a narcissist, right?
Right.
But a real politician knows better. So you take a Ted Cruz, who's a very smart man, debater, really good at the game, and knows you don't insult every ethnic group in America, and you put him with Trump's positions, and he's going to win. He's going to beat Hillary Clinton 4 years from now. Or you do it with Mike Pence, or you do it with Marco Rubio. You do it with any of these guys. a real politician. Now, then the question is, are the R's going to go that way, or are they Koch brothers faction going to be back in charge? The Paul Ryan,
What do you think?
Oh man, it's going to be a huge fight. And hilariously, all my Democrats in Washington are going to be rooting for the Koch brothers faction, right? Because that's the faction that loses. That's,
right.
Mitt Romney, put
Sure.
Mitt Romney in there. Let's try him again.
Right.
And that's the faction that loses. But, it's only funny because they've spent all these years demonizing the Koch brothers and demonizing all these other guys. And
Right.
the Koch brothers haven't come around to Hillary, but so many of the others have. Wolfowitz is backing Hillary. Hank Paulson, who we talked about before, backing Hillary.
Kissinger?
Glenn Beck, yes.
Get out of here.
Yeah, well, he
Glenn
didn't.
Beck.
He didn't back Hillary, but he said you couldn't vote for Trump.
Right.
And if that means Hillary's
De
president,
facto
so be it.
endorsement. Right.
Yeah, and it's nutty out there. I mean,
Well, these are, we're talking about all the...
by the way, there's something good about this, which is, Trump, for all his madness, took a sledgehammer to the political system. And that's healthy to have that happen every
Sure.
now and then, and it needs to happen more.
I don't know if that's healthy for the left, though.
Well,
I don't
we
know
need
if
to
it
do
is.
the
and
same. It needs to happen to the Democrats.
Sure,
too.
and it sort of started to this time with
Yeah.
Bernie or whatever, but
Yeah.
the job didn't get done. But as the right has sort of cascaded into disarray, that doesn't make the mainstream sort of consensus wisdom somehow more left wing. It makes it more right wing.
You think so?
100%, because it gives the Democrats the ability to sort of
I see what
serve
you're
their
saying.
big money interests.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, where
Well,
are you going to go?
Is Hillary reaching out to the R's?
Right.
So at the Democratic convention, like they had Michael Bloomberg out there on stage, it's several big name Republicans that spoke at the Democratic convention, and she's reaching out to those people. That's so people like you. Remember what I said about the Clintons and Listen Liberal? They're essentially their motto. I don't know if any of them ever said these exact words, but the motto of that period of Clintonism is they have nowhere else to go. So they look at people on the left of their party or the various demographic groups that make up the Democratic Party, blacks, labor, other minorities, and they say, well, those people, we can do whatever we want to those people because they have nowhere else to go.
Sure.
And that's like their philosophy of life. They reach out to the Republicans, they court the Republicans, and people like you and me are just like, well, what are you going to do? Vote for Trump? Come on.
Right. Well, this is...
Isn't that just, it's like, and once you figure that out, it's like, it's
But this is why
enraging.
This is why I personally, I don't care about the Republican Party. I don't care about Trump supporters.
Yeah.
I don't spend any time thinking about what that side of the aisle does.
Yeah.
My beef is with our side, 100%. And I'll give you a couple examples of why I feel that way. They're recent examples. You see where I live. You
Yeah.
know the kind of people that I'm surrounded by
Yeah.
are exactly the people
They
you're
have
talking
very
about.
good taste.
The very good taste.
I want to compliment you on your neighbor's very good taste, Chris.
But it's exactly the type of people that you talk about in your book. It's the
Yeah.
professional class.
Yeah.
The people from the good universities with the advanced degrees doing great things.
Very
or whatever.
content with themselves and
Yes.
believing that they are better people than others because
Yes.
they're so morally virtuous.
So I had a
drive a
couple,
Prius
couple
or whatever.
weekends, a couple weekends ago. Exactly, they stick their Hillary sticker
Yeah.
on their Prius and they drive
Yeah.
to the farmers
Yeah.
market and they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I had this 2 nights in a row a couple weekends ago. This weekend just made me so sad because one night I went out to dinner with some friends, a couple other couples, both of whom work in the entertainment industry and are very successful. And I got into this conversation with one of the other husbands there that was so disheartening, where he's talking about the visionary, these great visionaries of, Bezos and Zuckerberg and all this stuff, and then he goes into how Trump supporters are like the poor people that crashed the economy and the housing crisis. Those poor people, the poor people that did that
And
because they
God.
wanted
more house
four
than they
houses.
deserved.
Yes, that's right, and then they didn't want to pay for them.
and he associated that with Trump.
Yes, he compared it. He said, "Well, the Trump supporters are like the poor people that crashed the
Wow.
economy."
That I have not heard before.
Oh, let me tell you something, Tom. I kid you not. In this wacky West Side LA world
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
exist in,
yeah.
and the people that I run with, and these are like good people,
Sure.
like
Oh, I
nice
believe you, yeah.
guys, good family people.
Yeah.
I have never heard one person ever say anything from like the 2008, 2007 crash on, like, hey, maybe we're fucking this up. You know, maybe the system is kind of like, no. These people are the victims in all this.
Yeah.
And so having dinner with this guy and having this conversation where I can't even go into all the crazy shit, but let me tell you, this is a Democrat we're talking about. Oh my God. This is a West Side. This is the classic limousine liberal type of Democrat.
But there's also this deploring tone about Trump people, right?
Sure.
These are awful people. They're so racist.
Yes.
There's this class disdain, contempt.
Yes.
For those people.
Absolutely. But it gets worse, Tom.
Okay.
Because the next night, I drove up to Santa Barbara to go see Noam Chomsky talk. Noam Chomsky,
sure, great
hero,
man.
Wonderful. Everybody should read Noam Chomsky. Yeah. And I'm in a room full of, it's at this thing called the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation that does some work on, getting rid of nuclear weapons or whatever. And I'm in a room full of Santa Barbara's finest left-wing type people. It's a lot of academics. I mean, I didn't go around and ask everybody what they did, but
sure.
I know
I understand.
It's my in-laws and stuff, and good people, right? And a bunch of speakers get up and they intro Chomsky, and then he gets up, gives a long talk, and then a couple other people get up. Not unlike the thing that you did the other night. A lot of Trump bashing, a lot of Republican bashing. Not one mention, even from Chomsky. I couldn't believe this about Hillary Clinton or the people that have been in office for the last 8 years, the people that are about to be in office for the next 4 to 8 years.
It surprises me
not
that
one
he's
mention.
made that turn. I don't understand it.
Is that a serious conversation about nuclear disarmament if you're not talking about the Democratic Party?
Yeah.
Really? These are the moments in my life that give me very little hope. Yeah. Because I look at it and I go, does the left want to have an impact?
You and I have think about it this way. We invested a whole lot in a idealistic vision of the Democratic Party thanks to Barack Obama. And we had our illusions really rudely shattered. And
yes.
And maybe we were too naive. I don't think I was too naive about him. I think I listened to what he was saying, and he had a good line, and he was saying stuff that I wanted to hear. And we are now willing to think critically about them, but a lot of people haven't reached that point. A lot of people, for whatever reason. And a big part of it is that you and I can also see what is happening in this country to ordinary people, working class people, who are watching their way of life slip away. And the Democrats don't have an answer for that. And that's mind-boggling. That the party of the people, the party of Roosevelt, doesn't have an answer for those people. That's so fucked.
Agreed. Last question. Is this really your last book on politics?
Oh, God.
Because I think you say that every time.
I do say that every time. And look, so this book is, it starts with a theory, a sociological theory. That's so boring. But I use the politics to make it interesting. So I put it in these political terms and talk about the two-party system. But when I do that, I'm also degrading it's a degraded form. And I do it every 4 years because that's when people care about politics. Every 4 years we're like, oh, right, politics. What's Tom Frank saying this year? But I have a lot of ideas out there, and it's just that this is a genre where people pay attention to it, and I have a little trick in my voice, right? like the man says. For whatever reason, I'm good at this. But I didn't start. I started out. I wanted to do cultural history, and I did do cultural history, and I did Baffler magazine.
Sure.
And we used to have guys like you writing for it, and it was a blast, and I loved doing that, and I wish I could get back to that. I wish I could. It was just, but I mean, wow. This is what I do now. I don't know how I'm going to get out of it, but I have great book ideas, for somewhere down the road. But we'll see. Maybe they'll make me write more about politics. But right now, I'm out of ideas. As far as politics goes, I have fired my bolt here. I don't got anything left.
Be honest. Are you going to be a little sad after next week when this whole thing's over?
Oh my God, I'm going to go on vacation. You know that? I'm going to go on vacation. I'm going to go skiing.
Great. You're going straight to Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah. Disneyland.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that picture of Mitt Romney at Disneyland after his defeat in 2012? No. He was at the Matterhorn ride.
Yeah.
It's my favorite. It happens to be my favorite ride at Disneyland. They had a picture of Mitt Romney on it. And he was all alone on the roller coaster. Just him riding around on the Matterhorn. And I imagine they let him ride all day on that.
Consolation prize. You're almost president.
Yeah.
Good job, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, I know you got a busy couple of days here in LA, man. Thanks for coming to do this.
You got it, man.
Wow. Monica Lewinsky saved Social Security. Who knew? You heard it here first from Thomas Frank on Walking the Floor. Make sure you go to tcfrank.com to check out what he's up to. Sometimes I know he writes for The Guardian. I bet he'll have a new book before too long. He can't stop it. He says he's never going to write about politics again. I don't believe it for 1 minute. Now listen, hopefully this interview gave you something to think about, and I just encourage everybody out there, however you vote, whatever you think, whatever you believe in, really spend some time thinking about exactly what you're supporting when you pull that lever in the ballot box next week. All right, that's it for this week. I'm going to go take a nap. Adios, amigos.